Don't you love a parade? I love a parade. If I marched by this crowd in a parade, I might think I'd turned on the wrong street. Do you love a parade? Come on. When I was in the high school marching band, I thought parades were the best. You know, we had a 7-minute halftime show, but we had a 3.5-minute parade show that brought the house down. We won all kinds of trophies, and I used to love it. The marching Bulldog Band from Everett High School, doing the little arm swing and everything. And here we came. And when we got right up to that parade stand where you're supposed to do the show, and we turned, boom, and we faced that crowd, it's like big brass horns and cymbals clanging and bang. Boy, we went into these dance routines, and for 3.5 minutes, we wowed them, and then we turned and we started down the road, man. And I tell you what, we were spoiled. They ruined me for life. We never, ever got anything other than a first-place trophy for that parade show. Anywhere we ever went, man, I loved the parade. And the Christmas parade back home was the best. I loved it. We would go through downtown Maryville, Tennessee, man. And I mean, we would march up the hills and down the hills because unlike downtown Abilene, Texas, Maryville's built up and down, up and down. And we marched through downtown and people lined up all along both sides of the road. And then parents would throw their kids up on their shoulders, and I loved it. I'd sneak looks over there at little kids on the shoulders, and I'd think they're watching me, and they're dreaming of the day when they'll be in the Everett High School marching Bulldog Band, marching through the Christmas parade. Like old Zacchaeus or Zacchaeus, I think Sean may have got it right, up in the tree trying to get one glimpse of Jesus. And I know that Wiley Christian Church loves a parade because last year something happened that I don't think has ever happened on my watch in 12 years here. I let something fail. I didn't pull it all together and get you all there for the Christmas parade. I mean, it fell on my plate. There it was. And I could have done it, but I didn't. I said, man, I'm doing 100 other things and someone else needs to. And we didn't show up. And when we didn't show up, 2 things happened. One was all of y'all started calling me. Some of y'all called me the next day and said, hey, man, we were there. Where were you? And I'm like, oh, bad deal. I'm so sorry. But the other thing was people in the community started asking, where were y'all? You didn't think they noticed, did you? You didn't think that when we were going through the parade route on our little float that we usually throw together in the last 15 minutes before the parade starts, and the kids that jump up there and don't know all the words to the song, so they fight over the microphone and they mumble and they sing out of key, and the guitar players who go, I could have been somewhere else tonight, until you're halfway through the parade route and you're going, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else tonight. You didn't think they noticed. It's just a silly little float. No 1,000 flowers or million flowers. Nothing. You didn't think they noticed, but you know, when we come by, if you'll watch this year, they're singing. They're singing. Somebody asked me, so y'all sing Christian songs? I'm like, who in the world wants to sing along with Oh Holy Night? Little kids don't know that. No, we sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And when we turn the corner, everybody in the crowd singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's just the greatest thing. And when we weren't there, they paid attention. Yes, sir. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to be in that parade this year. Ms. Carol took the project on, and she'll be calling you, and we're going to be in the parade, and we're going to sing Away in a Manger, and we're going to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and today salvation will come to this house. You watch. We love fall festivals around here too. Carnivals are great. I'm no good at delegating, so I went out of town the day before the carnival, and I had to delegate. I couldn't pick up a single thing. I had to call all of you on the phone and say, would you mind doing this? And you did. You did. And if we take what we learned this year from our fall carnival and we apply it to next year, man, did you see the little kid train if you were here? Those little kids would have rode in that little train all day long. We could have burned up 2.5 gallons of Allen's gas in that riding mower if we'd have just kept them riding. And I had to run some of the big kids out of it because I want to thank our friends at Southern Hills Church of Christ for loaning us the train. And I want to assure them that we didn't let any of the big kids ride in the little cars, but they wanted to because everybody loved that train. And we opened the doors to our building. And do you know that probably half the people that came in that day were people from the neighborhood around here who don't go to church here? But they saw something going on in the big old metal building up on the hill. And they came up here, and they had a great time. And people in the community knew that something was going on. We opened the doors of our building, but we also opened the doors to our family. And we opened the doors to our heart when we allow the Boys and the Girls Club. I'm going to tell you, I can't remember how many years ago it was now. 5, maybe 6. But they had lost a place to meet in the Wiley community, and they were this close to being no Boys and Girls Club in Wiley. Now, there would have been other campuses they could go to. But for some 50 or 60 boys and girls every year, they will grow up and they will look back at this corner and they'll say, you know that big old metal building up there on that corner? That's where we went every day after school. Because we opened the doors to our building, we opened the doors to our family, and we opened the doors to our heart. And when I mean that, what I mean is we didn't fake open the doors and go, for $299 a month, we will share our heart with you. We had no price tag on our love for this community. And we opened the doors. I mean, we opened the doors. And I'm going to tell you that while they were out searching for a place to meet, it was a dire, dark day for the Boys and the Girls Club at Wiley. But the day that they opened the door here, salvation came to this house. Are you getting this message yet? We changed the lives and are still changing the lives of 50 to 60 young people every year. And they may not know it for 50 years. You may not be around to see the results. It'll happen long after you're gone. You know Zacchaeus. I used to say Zacchaeus, but I like that, Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus saved more than himself on that day. He saved his whole neighborhood. When it says that salvation came to his house, the word in the Scripture in the Greek is the word oikos. Not the word orkio, which would be the word for the dwelling in which he lived. But oikos is the word that the author uses for Luke, and the word means more than just he saved his dwelling or his house. The word oikos actually means the whole of a deceased person's possessions. Did you catch a few words in there that you'd never heard before? He didn't just save his house. He didn't just save his hide. He saved the whole of his possessions long after he has been deceased. Literally what it means is everything he leaves behind has been salvaged. That's pretty dad-blame powerful. The word for saved comes from the root word sozo or soterio, and I'm not saying any of this right. But I don't care. You can say it any way you want to. But I know what the second word means. It means preservation. Sozo means preservation. When he was saved, it means that his house was preserved. Even the word lost, when Jesus says that he has come to seek out the lost, even refers to the state of one's being after death, after this life. Zacchaeus didn't save just himself or just those in his household, but the poor in the community are saved. Because what does Zacchaeus do with his new salvation? But he begins to repay and to give back and to do more than repayment, but to actually give where nothing is owed and nothing is due. The poor in Zacchaeus' community are saved. He repays them. Golly, Luke's gospel may be saved if you're fairly affluent at all, because for once a rich man gets a break in Luke's gospel. I mean, we've been through the rich young ruler who says no to Jesus' offer. We have heard about Lazarus, the poor beggar, and the rich man who ends up exactly the opposite that we thought. The rich man ends up not in heaven, but in suffering, while the poor Lazarus ends up in the bosom of Abraham. It seems as though that the rich in Luke's gospel can't catch a break. Even when Luke gives you the Beatitudes and Matthew says, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, Luke leaves out the last part. He simply says, blessed are you who are poor, and then Luke adds those curses on top of it. Woe to those who are rich. wow, if I just got paid, I think I'm going to read Matthew's gospel. And when I'm between paydays, I may flip over to Luke. For once in Luke's gospel, a rich man enters the kingdom of heaven. His eyes are open, he sees, and his descendants are saved or preserved. I love to look at my son's friends and ask them, what's your name? They say, Tommy. No, I want to know, what's your whole name? What's your name, son? Tommy Smith. And I'm like, yeah, Smith. Does that mean anything to you? And of course they're looking at me like, huh? And I like to tell them, means something to your dad. Means something to your granddad. They think about it every time they're out somewhere. I loved going to the hardware store with my grandfather. Eagleton Hardware, Anderson Lumber, Walker Supply. I didn't know anything about building, didn't care to learn anything. I was too young to even care what I would do when I grow up. Although I had a guitar, I knew it wasn't going to turn out good. But I loved going to those hardware stores with my granddad because they would always say, there's Bill Kenny's grandson right there. And when they said it, it felt good because they respected Bill Kenny. I remember walking in to Eagleton Hardware to buy a little can of paint to paint a model that I had put together. And I couldn't find the paint I wanted at the hobby shop, so I went to Eagleton Hardware. And it surprised me that even when I walked in without my grandfather, they said, there's Bill Kenny's grandson right there. I'll tell you what, I started out with good credit at Eagleton Hardware. If I did anything to ruin it, it was not my grandfather's fault. I remember telling y'all this story one year. I came back from a vacation, and I'd stopped off up on the mountain where my dad's people are from. Now, my dad's people are real hillbillies, okay? My mom's folks, a little more sophisticated, but my dad's folks live up on the mountain. And I wanted to go find my cousin, and so I got into town, and I pulled off, and there were a couple of guys there, and I thought, well, I recognize them, but I don't know if they'll remember me. It's been a number of years. So in order to protect myself, I got my best hillbilly on, and I walked up and I said, hey, fellas, what's going on? I was looking for David. Can you tell me where I can find David? And they said, who are you? And I said, well, my name's Doug Royston. One of them said, Royston. Yeah, I know them Roystons. Them Roystons is mean. I was real quick to tell them, yeah, my dad, he's one of them mean ones, but I'm not one of the mean ones, because I thought they might want to test it. And I didn't want to get tried before I got out of there. It means something. Every decision we make means something for posterity, for those who are yet to come. We know now that addictive genes, alcoholism, can be passed on to descendants. Isn't that incredible? But I believe it's true, not because I'm a scientist or a doctor, not because I even care anything about science, but because I've seen it in generations. If it's not true, it's a powerful lie. Did you know, I'm pretty sure there's an anger gene, because I've seen anger and I've seen depression passed on without children being in the home where it's evident. But remove them from the home and raise them in a totally different environment, and somehow they can still from time to time turn out with the same anger and the same depression that was so evident in the tree from which they fell. There must be a gene. I'll tell you, I've learned some hard lessons. I don't like this one. But you know, if you're married and you're thinking about cheating on your spouse, you better cut it out. Because if you have children or siblings or parents, you're about to do some damage, because you cannot cheat on a spouse without cheating on your children. And I wouldn't even mention that in a context like this, except I think it's so dadgum important, because I have watched children grow into adult lives and still try to process that infidelity. You know, there's something about if your spouse does it to you, you can sort of work that out. But when it's your daddy or your mama, man, mama is sacred. You don't want that visual in your mind. You don't want to have to deal with that when you're grown. You cannot do anything to your family that you're not doing to your parents and your siblings. What is your last name? Because it means something to your daddy or your granddaddy or an uncle. It's going to mean something to your grandkids and their kids. But yet, Zacchaeus could make one decision and his household is saved. I dare say the community is saved. The Apostle Paul would plant one little church of 30 or 40 people in Philippi, and one in Corinth, and one in Galatia. And then he would walk away and say he had evangelized that whole region because he knew that like yeast in dough. Wow. I wasn't there the day my good friend who had been in church all his life sat in front of his parents who had taken him to church faithfully all his life, and he said, yeah, I grew up with a drug problem. And I'm told that his parents nearly collapsed in the pew. And he said, when I was growing up, my folks drugged me to church. And salvation has come to that house. You know, the congregational life is really hard. And it's taken a lot of hits these days. When people ask me if I'm a Christian, I really don't know how to answer because according to some people's definitions, I may not be. But if you ask me what's in my heart, I will tell you, oh, yes, I am. But I don't hold anyone else to my kind of Christianity. Am I a disciple? Oh, yes. Congregational life has taken quite a hit. There are reputations to be thought of. Even in this community, sometimes a congregation that would be liberal with love and liberal with grace and liberal in a lot of ways can get a very bad reputation. Well, you know, one Christmas parade at a time, one little kid singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, one graduate of a Boys and Girls Club program, and over time you rewrite your story. It doesn't matter what you hear tomorrow. You rewrite the story. And I like to say, and I'll say it for a long time, if congregational life is not important to you, and it may not be, there are a lot of places you can go. If congregational life is not important to you, that's fine. Ask yourself this question: will it be important to my children? Will it be important to my grandchildren? Will it be important to their children? And if the answer is yes, or even maybe, today is the day to involve yourself with a local congregation. Today, salvation will come to your house. Oh, it's not the church you'll preserve. God will find somebody. Somebody will sing praises to God if the rocks and the stones have to do it. Matter of fact, they are doing it even now if you're listening. The church will go on. You can stay home. Your kids can stay home. Your neighbor can break in and steal the gold candlesticks. The church will go on. You're not trying to save the church. It's your house. So there's a lot to do today. Oh, there's a lot to do today. There are meetings, there's business, there's money to be managed, budgets to be balanced, and when they won't balance, new ways to look at them all over again. There are things to be decorated, there's food to be gathered, there's things to be done. Even this day, we're not even going to be there when the Cowboys kick off. You can just forget it today. There's a lot going on in your life. There's a lot going on in mine. It's hard to get here. One of my dear friends said to me, you know, there were times you had no idea how hard it was to get up and scream at each other and try to corral everybody up, and nothing went right, and we are all so frazzled and angry at each other. When we got to the church, we had to go in and just pretend like everything was okay. I said, man, I don't even know why y'all would have come. Except what's here. Life. I don't know what's going on with y'all. I know that today At 3 o'clock, one of the most unlikely things will happen. Someone found someone. And they're ready to take the safest risk of all. Oh, it's a big risk. But gosh, you'll play the lottery. What are the chances of winning that? There are a number of odds against your changing your socioeconomic status in the whole course of your life. And you'll try. You'll persevere. And there's still a 50-50 chance you can get married and stay married. That's how many marriages still end in divorce. And yet today, Sean and Kelly are going to take the safest risk, yet the biggest risk of all. And they don't have much extended family. And they're not very good pre-planners. And they don't have any money. And you didn't even know about it till today. But you are their family. I know you are, because people who hardly know them have stayed up all night cooking brisket, gathering up food. People who hardly know them have been making plans among all the other things that we have to do today. To be here, to decorate, to stand up with them, to witness. And they'll go on, whether any of us show up or not. God will honor their relationship. They'll have the same struggles you and I have had. They'll have the same blessings. But at 3 o'clock today, I don't know any other way to tell you this. Man, with all the stuff, Girl Scouts here today, I got to be careful. I mean, you call it what it is sometimes. And with all that that's going on, hear this good news. Today, salvation has come to this house. May God preserve us. All that we pray. Amen. Will you pray with me now?